家来参加 ICANN APAC-TWNIC 网络治理交流论坛。这个场次的主题是注册资料存取揭露挑战与机会。Welcome to the ICANN APAC-TWNIC Engagement Forum. We will now proceed to the session titled Registration Data Access, Challenges and Opportunities. 这个场次呢，我们会从整体政策还有实务发展的角度来探讨，在资料保护要求日益严格的背景之下，网域名称注册资料的存取还有揭露如何演变，也会思考如何在隐私保障还有公共利益之间来取得平衡。In this session, we will examine how access to and disclosure of registration data are evolving under stricter data protection requirements and how to strike a balance between privacy and public interest. 这个场次的主持人是台湾网络资讯中心于若凡董事暨执行长。The moderator for this session is Ms. 若凡于 Managing Director and CEO of TWNIC. 接下来就把时间交给主持人于若凡执行长。I will now give the floor to the moderator, Ms. 若凡于。
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session. Our session is registration data access, the challenges and the opportunities. I'm Zhou Fan Yu, the CEO of TWNIC. I'm honored to moderate this session. So maybe you might be aware, over the past, many years, the conversation around the domain name registration data has undergone a really tremendous, change. So the implementation of GDPR and also the immersion, all the global privacy framework have really fundamental change, reshape, how the data is collected, accessed, and disclosed. So we see that it actually have a fundamental, and a significant impact on our long-standing, practice about, how we access the data and how we collect the data, how we disclose the data. So it's not only the technical operations, but also the cybersecurity and also law enforcement and the intellectual property groups, and also more broader, consumer protection and other groups as well. So at the same time, the internet community also continue to recognize the importance of the data, the domain name registration data, which plays a really important role to how to, as what we learned and we heard, in our keynotes, that a lot of challenges nowadays. So now we come to the questions. So how we balance? We have a lot of needs. This morning we heard a lot of privacy, human rights, a lot of consumer protections, child protections, everything. But on the other hand, how we can continue, the operation and public interest needs, for this. And I think it's more important how we do it in a timely and also really trusted, work, the way to do it. So today, the session, we are really honored and we are really happy to have opportunity to hear the perspective from different groups. So we are fortunate to have some speakers from the ICANN, from the industry and from the technology, technical community. And then we also have one speakers online as well, so from the GoDaddy. So we will start. Yeah. Okay. So let me introduce the speaker just next to me. Mr. Samiran Guttam. Samiran is the Vice President of Engagement of Stakeholder Engagement and Managing Director of APAC, ICANN. So before he joined ICANN in 2023, Samiran was Senior Director of Global Governance Affairs for India and South Asia with Twitter, and now it's X Corporation. He previously served as ICANN head of India and also head of stakeholder engagement South Asia, and also later is a vice president of government intergovernmental organization engagement for the APAC region, and also the stakeholder engagement for the South Asia. So he has extensive experience in business strategy, public policy consulting in sectors including telecom, entertainment, fintech, e-commerce, social media, and energy and renewable. So before joining ICANN, Samira also served as a senior director with APCO, APCO worldwide, where he was responsible for consulting clients in business and public affairs strategies. So welcome, Samira. So the next one, I think it's, yes, I think now everyone knows Dr. Steve Quaker. Dr. Quaker, of course, I mean, is an internet pioneers in computer science and with extensive experience in academic, government, and the industry. So he was involved in the internet since just from his speech, we know that it's in the 1960s. And so he was also, I mean, when he was a great student at UCLA, he was a part of the team that developed the protocol for the ARPANET, and later also, I mean, the foundation for later today's internet. So he also organized a networking group, which was a forerunner of the modern internet engineering task force, IETF. And also, he is the first author, I mean, of the IFC, the first one, the request for comments. And so because of this, Dr. Quaker was also awarded the 2002 IEEE Internet Award as well. And starting from 2002, Dr. Quaker also served as the founding chair of the Security and Stability Advisory Committee, SEC, of ICANN. And later, he also joined the ICANN board and then the chair for many years. Thank you. The next one is Akinori Maimura. So Akinori Maimura-san having joined us, I mean, this event, I mean, for many years. Thank you for your support. So Akinori-san is a Chief Policy Officer of JPNIC. JPNIC, the Japan Network Information Center, is a nonprofit internet promotion body and also the National Internet Registry for Japan. Maimura-san has more than 25 years of career experience in the internet, technical operation and coordination. So he started his career at NEC Corporation, I think it's in 1994. So later he got more involved in the internet coordinations among ISPs and associations, including to establish the JNOC as well. So he also became the EC, APNIC EC member as well, the board, the member, and also the chair, I mean chair as APNIC EC for around like 13 years. So his experience spent really different IP and also domain as well. And he later served in the ICANN support for many years as well. So we also have online thank you. We also have a speaker joining online. Is Crystal Patterson? Crystal, yeah, thank you. Crystal is a senior director of a registry operation and account management of GoDaddy Registry, one of the world's largest registry service provider, supporting more than 200 top-level domain extensions. So in his role, Crystal leads the operational and also commercial compliance strategy for the diverse portfolio of some of the internet most recognized TODs, including .us, .tv, .biz, .cloud, .vip, and of course, GoDaddy is also our good partners, I mean, for .tw as well. So Crystal oversees registry business operations, including the stable marketing operation, customer support, and safety compliance, and to deliver the scalable and resilient service that support both the registered partners and also the broader internet communities. So he worked consistently bridge the business performance with the responsible internet governance, aligning registry growth with the global standard and regulatory, I mean, expectations. Welcome, Crystal, as well. So, okay, so But before we start, we also want to show there's a QR code. So if you want to raise any question, just please just scan this QR code. Later we will just show, on the screen. So we will have some time after, the discussion and sharing, to answer the questions. So, but if you want to use, the Chinese Mandarin to raise your question, please feel free to do so. I will translate just English. Okay, maybe my first question is for Samiran. So Samira, you working in ICANN, and actually this registration data, this topic have been really hot topics for many years. So how do you see, the all the development, especially from the ICANN perspective? And then we also know that ICANN spend a lot of effort on this as well. To deliver some mechanisms as well. So maybe you want to share with us your view.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rofan. And great to be here. And this is a very important panel, and this is a very germane topic. So I wanted to refer back to what Dr. Crocker mentioned in his keynote some time ago, that the WHOIS was, I recall you saying it was like a lost child or an abandoned child or something of that sort. But nonetheless, when local and regional privacy protection laws got kind of came into place, and since then it's been a challenge for whether it's law enforcement agencies or even for researchers to get enough information or credible information on registrants. And this process has gone through a lot of discussion at ICANN over the years, as you rightly mentioned. So there are broadly three parts to the conversation. And I think today we are going to be talking more about the second part, but I must touch a little bit on the first part, which was the registration data access protocol, which provided registration information for generic top-level domains. And the RDRS is the or the registration data request service is for requesting access to top-level TLDs, generic top-level TLDs for non-public registration data. And that's really where the challenge lies. And of course, trying to find a unified way for requesting this non-public data, and which is known as the Systems for Standardized Access / Disclosure. So these are the three elements that come into play when it comes to this topic. As far as the first element is concerned, registration data access protocol, this came into force on 28 January 2025 with the sunsetting of the WHOIS services. And RDAP was developed by the IETF and is offered by ICANN accredited registrars and GTLD since 2019. Some numbers of how many queries are served, as I've got a number from December 2024. It's a little dated, obviously, but 10 billion queries a month are being served. Over 40 known RDAP clients. But more importantly, moving to RDRS, which is the free and global service that handles requests for access to non-public registration data. This was initiated to collect data about system usage to inform future policy recommendation discussions. Now, we embarked on a 2-year pilot project in November 2023. The first 2-year period of this pilot came to an end in December 23, and the ICANN board decided to extend after consultation with the community, extend this pilot for 2 more years. And then, of course, the third part is, finding a unified method of for the community, like a long-term solution for requesting access to GTLD data. So these are the 3 elements. I don't want to go into too much detail at this time. I'm sure we can dive into more details as we go.
Thank you. I think thank you for Samiran's sharing. I think I can actually spend a lot of efforts, to collect the community feedback on this really important, so maybe we can discuss further then. So I think my second question is for Dr. Steve Quackers. So I think, Steve, you have been involved in ICANN for so many years. And also this topic and has always been discussed in the community, and now, but as you mentioned in your speech, that you decided to focus your time and energies on this topic. So maybe why you want to focus on this, and then what you are doing right now, and why, and what is the lessons you learned from through all the journey.
Is this on? Yeah. Thank you, Chofan. Well, as I mentioned, I've been watching the registration data saga, and I had the benefit of having the history all the way back to the very beginning, when the first 4 nodes on the ARPANET were put together. There was no explicit discussion about having a directory or having access to the registration data, no such thing. Even the numbering was simple. We used very exotic numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4 for the first 4 nodes. And then after a while, people said it'd be nice to have some names to go with that. So at UCLA, we thought UCLA would be a good name. We did not have any dots or segmentation of the names. And then, of course, as things grew, the domain name system became important. The critical change that took place was the World Wide Web and the domain name system, those 2 things, and of course the internet itself, a network of networks. So all of a sudden there was a need for a naming that was dissociated from the hosts themselves. So originally, we named the host computers that were time-shared computers, multi-user computers, and now we're naming websites, basically, or other services, and giving each one of those a name. And so all of a sudden, the setting is different. The terms registrant, admin, tech, and billing contacts, those 4, have slightly different histories from each other. The original roles, the original people that were listed with respect to the time-shared systems became what you would call today the admin and the tech contacts. The tech contact was the person who had the technical control of the computer, the sysadmin, as it were. We didn't have that word at the time, but that's the role. So that if the machine needed to be restarted or there was some configuration issue, that was the person. And the admin contact is the person who had supervisory control. If somebody at the other site was behaving badly and you needed to find somebody in charge, or other kind of administrative issues, that there was a person that was named. Today, if you look at a registration, there's a very peculiar thing. At least 2 peculiar things. One is, who is the person that has the actual control over the registration? It's the account holder. It's the customer of the registrar. That's not the registrar. That's not the admin contact. That's not the tech contact. That's not the billing contact. Where is he? Where is she? Or it, if it's a company? Well, that's the customer of the registrar, and often the registry does not have any access to that information whatsoever. That's interesting. And that person has the account, has a password with the account with the registrar, and in the space of a matter of seconds can cause enormous changes, for better or for worse, in the configuration of the registration. Transfer the control, change the name servers, etc. So on the one hand, we have an extremely important personality, a role, that is not represented at all. And now when we look at the ones that are represented, you can ask the sort of common sense question, so what is a role? And I like to make that question more precise with two pieces. One is, any person who's got a role should know that they have that role. That's a surprise that one would say that, but oftentimes somebody's name will be there and they don't even know it. But more precisely, what are their capabilities? What are they authorized to do? If you talk to that person and convince them that they should do something, what can they do? And the other side of that is, what are they obligated to do? What responsibility do they have? So if we then look at the four roles that I listed of registrant, admin, tech, and billing contact, the registrant has a relatively well-defined role. They are the person who has the legal control in most situations of the net. And you might ask, well, how does that relate to the account holder? Well, that's a very interesting question, because the account holder obtains the domain name and makes the deal with the registrar and pays the fee and designates who the registrant is. And at the moment of that designation, that registrant acquires a considerable amount of authority. Well, what happens if the account holder does something mechanically, electronically, just goes in and changes things, and there's a disconnect in the disagreement between the account holder and the registrant? And the answer, relatively common across the entire network in all the jurisdictions, is that although the account holder has the electronic control, that the registrant, if they have the appropriate paperwork, can present themselves to the registrar in relatively short amount of time, not measured in seconds, measured in days or weeks, but not measured in months or years, can recover control of the account. All right, well, that's the registrant. What about the admin and tech contact? There's no documentation, no formal specification of what their roles are. In some cases, for some registrars, there is some amount of specific role assigned to them that the admin contact has to get involved in certain things. But there's no uniformity across the entire system, no definition of what their roles are. That's weird. We've been running 50 years and we don't have even a formal definition of it. And the billing contact is a little worse. First of all, it's not as uniformly used as the admin and tech contact. And second of all, when I've inquired, so what is the billing contact? I got contradictory answers in different settings. Oh, that's the person who you contact if you're having a billing problem with your hosting provider. That's not true, but that's a perception that comes up. And another one is that's the person who's responsible for paying the bills on the website or on the domain name registration, rather. That's not true. Just confusion. And one might ask, well, in that case, why do we bother with all of that? That's a very good question. One might just wipe out admin, tech, and billing contacts altogether. Well, no, that would be a change. That's too big a change. It's a policy thing. We have to have a lot of meetings about the nonsense. I mean, it's just a morass that we all sink in. So there's some background, and I've used up a lot of time. And Joanne, you'll have to say if you want me to then talk about what the steps forward are. But we've been working on this problem hard and actively for an embarrassingly long time. First, I worked on it from the advantage of being chairman of the board. Chairman of the board is very powerful and completely unpowerful, impotent. You're not allowed to really do anything. You can mouth off, you can give directions to the CEO, you can stir the pot a little bit. When we had a fresh CEO, Fadi Shahadi, and I was chair of the board, I said, we've got to fix this. Board is not allowed, the ICANN board is not allowed to make policy. That's a hard, fast rule. It has to be a bottoms-up, multi-stakeholder process. But we said, but we can provide information, we can provide guidance, we could try to be helpful here. So we passed a formal resolution, the highest level of action that we can take at the board, directing the CEO to conduct a study. We passed that in November 2012, I believe. And Shahadi did a first-class job. He assembled a really strong team. It became known as the Expert Working Group that produced around a 150-page report looking at tiered access and a lot of other issues. In my judgment, it was a far better piece of work than we had had before, but not yet sufficient. No matter, that was passed into the ICANN policy process, the GNSO, and they said, thank you very much, and started over from scratch as if they had never heard anything before, and they ran into a ditch again and again and again, same repeated sorts of things. Now we're getting into the mechanisms and the policies and processes in ICANN, which I can go on for much longer than anybody can stay awake, but it's got its problems. It's got its strengths, but it's got its problems. So those were actions I took while I was on the board, and when I stepped down in 2017, as I mentioned, I was sort of at a stage in life where I did not have a next agenda, and instead of doing the usual polite thing of going off into the sunset and not bothering anybody further, this really gnawed at me. It gnawed at me for multiple reasons. First of all, we just didn't have a good solution. Second of all, it showed poorly, in my view, on behalf of ICANN, sort of a failure to deal with something that was clearly in its remit. And it also gnawed at me because as a tech guy who worries about system design and operational efficiency and effectiveness and reliability and security and so forth, it really was a kind of hodgepodge mess, and I hate to see that. Of course, that's normal in an awful lot of lives that we live, but nonetheless, for systems that we depend upon, we expect them to meet a certain standard of in all these dimensions of efficiency and effectiveness, and the system wasn't, the WHOIS system simply wasn't there. The pressures from governments were large but crude, large but very simple. So GDPR is like a swinging of the pendulum back to the privacy side, but the mental image of this pendulum should be more like a wrecking ball that swings very hard from one side to the other and leaves a mess in its wake. And yes, we have a much greater emphasis on privacy, but we do not have a more effective system. It's just different, failing in different ways. So we set out to design, which we've done, a fresh system that is backward compatible with the existing system, but also has all of the levers and controls, at least we think it does, to be much more precise and nuanced about who gets access and what the purposes are, what the accountability is, and all of that. We've been working with that, and then, as I mentioned, we've been working for the last several months with TWNIC, a really delightful partnership, I must say, just a first-class set of people that I've had the pleasure to work with. And we have a pilot underway at the moment of installing the software and getting it to turn over and trying it out. And looking forward to working with any and all who are interested, and hope to turn this into something that becomes straightforward and viral rather than some whimsical exercise.
Thank you, Steve. So maybe I turn to our online speakers. Crystal. Yeah. So Crystal, I think is GoDaddy is one of the biggest registrar globally. So so obviously, I mean, you have also faced, I mean, a lot of challenges. I mean, as of not only from the registrar but also the registry perspective as well. So maybe you can share also with us about, you know, from the policy and the industry's, I mean, perspective, how you see these problems and what is the challenge for you, and maybe what is the opportunity, you know, for our whole community, how we handle this as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just wanted to first say thank you very much for inviting me and allowing me to speak with this very, very important collaborative event. So, and I am speaking from the registry perspective. And from the registry perspective and policy, we have implemented over the course of the past year with the registration data policy updates that happened for all GTLDs, that GoDaddy Registry implemented what we call the Must Plus system, and that is to have and request certain contact data to come into the registry, which I know is rather different from many of the other GTLD registries out there today. But we felt that with both certain policy requirements that we have within certain GeoTLDs that we own and operate, along with certain policies for operational and controls and collaboration with registrars in terms of contractual requirements, in terms of certain abuse, in terms of other areas such as that having all of the contact data and the registration data together within the registry was helpful. And we wanted to be uniform across our TLDs. This did pose a bit of a challenge, as well as it took a year-long process to update and to help ensure that all of our systems were updated, as well as we had collaboration with registrars to ensure that we didn't have any issues with actually accepting registrations, and to make sure that registrants and end users could still register their domains as needed. So it has been very interesting, and it's nice to be on here with Dr. Crocker, with a lot of the history of from who is to now with RDAP, and then also looking from a registry perspective of from thick and thin models of who is and RDAP data sets to now the must or the must plus. And I'd love to get into a little bit more of a discussion and hear about that maybe as well. But it has been, from a policy perspective, it has been very interesting over this past year with some of the decisions that we were looking to make, to number one, be uniform, but also make sure that as the authoritative database for the registries that we do own and operate, what does that mean? And that has been some questions that we have been answering, as well as looking at certain policies from across the portfolio and how can we support that. So that's been some of the challenges, and I'd say some of the decisions that have been made. From an opportunity perspective, this is where we have been looking at what does having what we call the must plus or the more thick type model allow for, as well as with some of the data requirements that as GTLDs we have with GDPR that came into effect, and with some of the masking from anonymous lookups, and the fact that there does have to be a legitimate request, and how can the registry play a part in that and help and help the community from that perspective, as well as being able to look at trends and patterns, to be able to potentially use some of that data and to help registrars to help across the portfolio. So we're not looking at domain names in silos, but we are looking across portfolios as well as potentially across registrars from a registry perspective. So those are some of the opportunities that we are looking to be able to provide, and we can see across not just our GTLDs, but across some of the CCTLDs that we help with. That I know later in the week we're talking about trusted namespaces and being able to do that. We do see registration data as one of those places to be able to help support that and being able to have that registration data. So it is something that we did not make decisions lightly, but we were looking to ensure that we are participating and collaborating with the community and with all of the players to help make sure that we have good systems and trust in all of our registries and domain names.
Thank you, Crystal, for your sharing. So we will have more questions later. So
Yes.
okay, I think I will turn my my last question. To Maimuna-san. So you have now you are in the IP community mainly, but you also have experience in domain and also IP. Together. I think it's so from your view. So what is the challenge and what is the opportunity right now?
Yes, thank you very much, Johan. First of all, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So yes, as I said, my job is twofold. One is the APNIC at the JPNIC as the National Internet Registry, and the other half is the ISOC to promote the internet itself. Then the former half, as an NIL, it is relatively easier in comparison with the domain name to handle with this registry database thing, because IP address is distributed in the hierarchical manner. So I mean that the IP address, chunk of the IP address is once distributed to a regional internet registry, which is basically the ISP, and then the ISP distributed that pieces of IP addresses to the end users. So sometimes the National Internet Registry and the Regional Internet Registry may have the registration for the assignment, which is the end user. But we can rely on the regional, local internet registry to identify the users. So it's the half the RIR and the NIL business a bit easier, because we can rely on the ISPs to finally identify the who is using that identifier. Then that's a good thing. Then I don't say the regional internet registry has no problem with the database. We have sometimes, but it is relatively easier than domain name thing. And then now I am talking about my latter half of business, which is sometimes dealing with for example, everyone in here. I'm more than sure that you love the manga from Japan, right? Then the manga has been suffering from the piracy for a long time, and then I have been taking care of the problem. Sometimes the publishers want to have the identity from the registration data. Then that's very hard. Sometimes the data is not accurate. So my really primitive idea would be, we have the DNS, right? The DNS is the mechanism to convert domain name to the IP addresses. It's a conversion of the identifier to identifier. That's relatively easy. But the registration data need to convert the identifier to identity of the natural person. So it is sometimes very hard to take. So we have the two problems in the registration data problem. One is the data accuracy. The registered data is accurate enough to identify the identity. Then that's one part. The another part is the sub-theme of this decision says the balance between the privacy and the what's that? Privacy and the accuracy. The access to the data. So that part is quite tricky. So, for example, in case of the anti-piracy of the manga, I know a lot of cases we have with the one piracy operator often hop their own domain name one to the other in sometimes the frequency of the 1 week or less. In that time, any legitimate request to the registrar doesn't help to identify because it is too short. When the registrar take care of that to disclose the data, the piracy operator already left from that domain name. That's not efficient, not effective at all. So this kind of situation need to be taken care of by the entire registry and the registrar, the ecosystem, but it is not yet enough. So that's the very part of it, very part of the problem. And then, as you said, what is the opportunity? When we have the problem, solving the problem itself is the opportunity for that. So I'm really, love to see some really brilliant idea to, solve this kind of the, balance of the, data access and the privacy thing, and then the data accuracy, maintaining the data accuracy thing. So that's my part of the intervention to here.
Thank you. I think if from all the sharing, I think we know that now is a balancing issue. You balance different interests. But I think another important thing, just like Maimura-san mentioned, is also the speed. Like what we found that based on TWNIC's data, we found that maybe like a phishing website, they only last for like several hours. So how you can, if you take a lot of time, just to get the data, then it gone already, we move to other domain already. So speed is so important. But we see the development. And we know that maybe you are familiar with the TOD, this community. You see, we have like a GTOD. We also have CCTOD. GTOD, we have like a discussion in ICANN, but CCTOD have its own, development. And now we can see like in Europe, they have their own, framework, how to handle the data access problem. And then in Asia, maybe at many countries, we all have different ideas. So now although we try to solve the problem, we always say one word, one internet. But obviously for the data access, we see more fragmentation. So, but now we also think speed is important. So how can we handle that? What is a good, should be, maybe we don't have a perfect solution, but what is the direction we should go to? So I think it's for all the panelists. Yeah. Please, Samira, please.
I chose to dive into the deep end of the pool, thanks to the question. I think, Maimura-san rightly pointed out, and I've actually worked very closely on the manga challenge and the data accuracy of registrant. So policy always lags a little behind technology. It's a known fact, but sometimes it lags a little behind certain jurisdictional court orders. And you've already mentioned what's happening in Europe, what's happening in India, which impacts all, the global industry. There was a court order in December, which called for the government of India mandating a process by which registration data accuracy is kind of maintained. It doesn't matter if the registry or registrar is not based in India. So many of these things are work in progress. From ICANN's perspective, I think we've seen what the challenges have been in the first 2 years of the RDRS program. And those, there's a very detailed report available online. If somebody's interested, I'm very happy to share the link. You can go take a look at the report. But we really learned through this 2-year pilot the challenges that registries and registrars also have. They too have, and Crystal already mentioned, some of the interventions that, let's say, her company is planning to take in terms of having additional data available. But then the question again rotates back to, so how do we standardize what GoDaddy is doing versus some other, registry operator? So there's obviously a lot of scope for streamlining this process. I know Steve is patiently waiting to talk about his Project Jake, where he's also trying to address this problem, bring it into some streamlined process. But yes, there's a fair bit going on, and we expect the GNSO Council to come back, which is part of the GNSO system in ICANN, to come back with fresh recommendations soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Samira. So, Steve, you want to comment as well?
Yeah. I think this sequence started with an observation that you have different solutions in different places. How do you bring them all together and make it uniform? Well, that's a very nice desire approach, but we've all been at it long enough that we have to challenge whether or not that's possible, or at least whether it's possible to do in a simple, straightforward fashion. So I think we're living in a fractured world in which the attempt to bring everybody together for a common unified solution is the beginnings of a bottleneck. I mean, that's how you create a bottleneck. You sort of get everybody together and say, you all have to agree. And when you come back and say, how much progress have you made? The answer is none. Like a lot of things in this world, I mean, this is a reflection as much of the real life that we all live in different countries and different cultures, and getting uniformity. We don't have a global government, for example. We don't have any unifying force that applies across the entire world. So we have to approach these problems with the same attitude that we peel off what you can, you tolerate different solutions, and let the experience that is derived from actually making progress on one front or another become instructive for other people to choose to follow or not. So I think of it as kind of a patchwork quilt. It's not elegant, it's not unified, but it's but nonetheless, if you can get large pieces of it under control, you're better off. And this is, as I say, this is as reflective of whatever happens in the rest of human society these days. We live in a world that was structured pretty much from the treaties of 1648 that basically said to countries, keep your hands off of other countries. Hasn't worked out perfectly, of course, but it sort of set the seen for identifiable countries with identifiable borders and control within that. Well, fast forward a few hundred years, and you say, well, how do you keep things under control within borders when you have electronics that can jump borders instantaneously, as well as other aspects, again, from the physical world, things like air pollution and other aspects of climate change across the world are things for which individual legislation within a particular country may sound very fine, but it isn't going to solve the whole problem. So we have the same sort of effect here. So I don't mean to be too negative about it, it's just sort of realistic. And then within that set of constraints, or lack of being able to get a single unified control, how well can we do in terms of allowing different policies and different approaches to interact? And that's challenging, of course. You get the GDPR attempts to be influential outside of the European boundaries. The Indian court ruling, as I understand it, also attempts to impose its will outside of the confines of the Indian country. And so there's going to be some pushing and shoving on all of this. We're not going to get perfect solutions, but to the extent that, but I do believe we have a couple of interesting and useful pieces of leverage. One is we can solve whatever problems we can grab hold of and get them to work. That's one. The other is we can make a lot of things visible that have not been made visible before. Let me give an example. Data that's collected during registration time may be accepted by whatever the registrant or the account holder provides, or it can be subjected to some degree of checking to see about accuracy. And there's emerged in general discussion, not our own creation, a kind of a four-level model related to accuracy. The bottom is this data was given to us and we did no checking, we just took it as given. That's the bottom level. Next level up is syntactic checking. If it's supposed to be an email address, does it look like an email address? If it's a phone number, does it look like a phone number? That's pretty mild and easy to check, but nonetheless far better than just taking whatever string of bits is passed across. So that's the next level up. Above that, things get much stronger. If it's an email address, for example, and you send a message there, do you get a response? Is it active and responsive to you? If you call on a phone number, does it get answered, and the person who answers the phone have any recognition that they're who you expect them to be, or do they provide any confirmation of that? The top level of this four-level hierarchy is all of that checking plus some extra evidence that it really does belong to the proper person, so that it's not fake or separate. Usually requires some outside evidence of one sort or another. So with that four-level model, one could imagine that every piece of data that's collected is tagged with what level of validation that was subjected to. And you can either do this for real and put a tag in there explicitly, it only takes up a certain amount more space in your database, or you could do it by rule, which is that you know what the level is, and when you retrieve that piece of data, you know sort of what the accuracy level was, or what the validation process that it was subjected to. And you can pass that information on to the requester. You can pass that information on to the requester. Why is that interesting? Because then it makes visible what the accuracy of that data is, or the presumed accuracy of that data is. And if the tag says, I don't know, we took it, we gave it to you, you asked for it, and that's what we got from the registrant, not our problem. Well, that's a perfectly straightforward answer, but it provides the opportunity for the requesters to say, you know, we would have been better served if we knew that that was accurate data. And here's the surprising thing. Even the registrants, in many cases, will want the fact that their data has been vetted, has been checked, to be known to the requesters. And so we've had conversations, a lot of conversations, and in some of the conversations, we've had registrants from major organizations, major businesses say, this would be to our benefit if anybody who requests data about us knows that that data was checked and not just asserted by us, but has been checked for accuracy so that people can depend upon it. Now you've got the basis. Now you've got the basis for a possible virtuous cycle, not one that is imposed from the top, not one that we or any other group can insist on, but the forces are then unleashed to operate in an incremental fashion and gradually raise the floor in terms of the quality of the data there. At least that's the hope. So there's an expectation that I have. We'll see how it plays out, but by untangling some of these processes, making some of the information more visible, even without applying the force of saying you must do a checking, that's expensive perhaps, and you get some pushback. So there's a balance between how much pressure to put in with the know your customer kind of rules and so forth, versus letting the social pressure of the ultimate users of this data and others interact in all of this. So those are the kinds of things that I am hopeful will provide some pathway for addressing the goal that you were expressing of having some way of having uniformity across the system. And I think trying to go directly toward uniformity, I think we have plenty of evidence. It's too hard, it's too tangled, not going to happen. But by sort of pulling the pieces apart and letting information flow that can, and particularly just being clear about what you do know about the information and not forcing it to be something that it isn't, it can open the door for gradual improvement over time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time, but we do have one interesting question from the audience. So I think it's I think it's for all the panelists. So we share these topics actually in the domain and IP community. We are very familiar with that, and we suffer that, and we see it's a big challenge. I mean, for the internet, but for the common, I mean, the average internet users, if they have never heard about WHOIS, or they have little knowledge about WHOIS, how would you explain why this is important to them? And please just give one example. So maybe I start with Akinori.
Yeah, I think that I've already answered to that question beforehand. And WHOIS and registry data directory service is important because that to make the conversion of the correspondence between Internet's unique identifier to the identities in the real world. So that's really, the key point of the reason that Internet is the social infrastructure for the society, and then the Internet is can benefit in the physical society world. So that is the very reason why it is important.
So, please.
The question is, how is the ordinary average user of the internet going to know about WHOIS? And the closer related question of, and does it matter? And I think those two are sort of interrelated, because if it doesn't matter, then what do you care, who knows? But if it matters, then it's probably useful for people to know about that. Well, I think there's probably two sort of opposite things to say. One is that the actual usage by ordinary users, there's an argument that says domain names all told are becoming less important. People look up by keywords, they look up by patterns, or they just pose the problem that they're trying to solve, and they'll let ChatGPT or something else figure out where to go with all that. So if you go down that path, all of this becomes much less important because nobody's really using it. I don't think that's a sufficient answer because, on the other hand, there is still enormous and I think enduring use of domain names and a desire to have accountability and a trustworthy, a trustable structure underneath that. In which case, perhaps the most important issue is that in today's world, when you try to find out who's behind a particular domain name, the information that you get back, if you get back any, is not very helpful because of accuracy issues, because of proxy and services and other activities. And so anything that pushes toward greater reliability, greater trustworthiness of that information, that improves the quality of that information and the accessibility, I think is a good thing. And with respect to accessibility, let me make one quick point. The privacy people have very, very reasonable concerns about, if you get access to that information, then it can be abused. And so there is quite a lot of pressure from a good fraction of people with that concern that they want to restrict access to the data under all circumstances. I mean, I'm making it kind of extreme, although sometimes that's what you hear. The thing that would improve this is that access to the data should come with the obligation that you protect the data, and that if you don't protect the data, either by accident or by malice, then you should be held accountable for that, and provide pressure to avoid having the data being abused simply because you've said I've got a legitimate use for it, and then there's nothing structured after that. My time is up. I will stop now.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe we quickly turn to the Crystal, our online panelist. I mean, to see if you want to have a quick comment as well.
Sure. So from a perspective of some of the challenges and the question from the audience around what is the importance of who is data or registration data, I want to come and kind of expand on what Dr. Crocker was saying, but it's from a multi-layered perspective. So from the registry perspective, we do believe in receiving accurate data, because that can help to secure those domain names should anything happen at a registrar level. If a registrar goes out of business, there is somewhere that data and those domain names for those registrants won't be lost. So having that be accurate, I think, is very important to give that that ease of mind that it is not lost, and your data is not lost, and your domain names are not lost, because those can be very important. And I agree. I think domain names still have a critical place within today's internet, as well as yesterday's internet. And so being able to have that, I think, is very important. I think one of the things that we've seen over the course of the past few years with GDPR that started, but then also a lot of the registration data services that have been talked about as well, is the fact that it's gone from an anonymous lookup, where we were saying that the true data was needed, but with anonymous lookups, anyone could access that without a legitimate reason, and that was a challenge. And so with the fact that there does need to be a legitimate reason to access that can and could allow for both registrars, registries to be able to help have accurate data and be able to validate, as Dr. Crocker was talking about, but to actually give comfort to registrants that they can give accurate data, and that is not just displayed up on a screen or provided to somebody that doesn't necessarily have a legitimate use for that data. And I think that is something that as discussions go on now can be very helpful and within that space to be able to give accurate data.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. So I think that we are a little bit over time, so maybe we just close here. So I want to thank you all our panelists. I mean, on-site and online. I mean, for all the great sharing. I think it's important. I mean, topics we see is a challenge. I look forward to see. We will say it's an opportunity. It's not challenging. I also want to thank you all the audience. I mean, for your joining. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this wonderful panel. May I invite all the panelists and the moderator to have a group photo to wrap up this session. So may I invite you to please stand up and move a little bit closer toward each other at the center and look at our photographer right in the middle. 我们这个场次的座谈最后来邀请主持人跟所有的语坛讲者来合影一张。We will have one on-site first, and then we will have a hybrid group photo with your online speaker. A big smile, one more. Thank you. And should we have one hybrid? Do we have the hybrid photo with? Okay, good. Thank you very much to all the panelists for this wonderful panel. Please return to your seats. Thank you.